You have an aphid problem, but the real problem isn't the aphid, it's the ant. While you spend money, time, and products trying to eliminate aphids from your plants, the ant remains there, invisible, rebuilding the problem every week, because aphids are the ant's livestock. The ant cultivates them, protects them, moves them from plant to plant, and attacks any natural predator that tries to eliminate them. You'll never solve the aphid problem without solving the ant problem. And there's a powder that does just that. A powder that has existed for centuries, costs next to nothing, doesn't require constant reapplication, doesn't poison the soil, doesn't kill earthworms, and doesn't contaminate what you're going to eat. But before I show you what it is, I need to explain what ants are doing in your garden that no one has told you about. Because once you understand the scale of the real problem, you'll realize that eliminating aphids was just the visible tip of something much bigger. Let's start with what happens underground. The ant isn't just a surface problem, it's an underground engineer, and in your garden, it's engineering against you. An ant colony digs tunnels that can reach 6.5 feet deep and spread several square yards in all directions. These tunnels are the paths where the colony moves, stores food, and regulates the nest temperature. But from your soil's perspective, these tunnels are a silent catastrophe. The first damage is desiccation. Tunnels create air channels that go directly to your plant's root zone. When these channels are open, the soil moisture around the roots evaporates much faster than it would in undisturbed soil. You water today. Tomorrow the soil around the roots is dry in a way that doesn't make sense given the amount of water you put in. The second damage is root destabilization. Ants dig around and under root systems, creating air pockets that leave the roots without contact with the soil. A root without contact with the soil cannot absorb water or nutrients, even if the surrounding soil is moist. The plant wilts. You water more, it doesn't help. You add fertilizer, it doesn't help. The problem isn't the soil, it's the empty space the ants created between the soil and the roots. The third damage is pathogen transport. Ants carry fragments of fungal material, bacteria, and insect eggs through their tunnels and deposit them at different points in the garden. They are vectors for cross-contamination between healthy and diseased plants. But the fourth damage is what I mentioned before, and it's the most important: aphids. In the comments, tell me now, do you have ants in your garden, aphids on your plants, or both at the same time? Because if you answered both, the answer is about to make a lot of sense. The relationship between ants and aphids is one of the oldest and most sophisticated associations in the insect world. Aphids feed on plant sap, excreting a sugary residue called honeydew, which ants consume as food. In return, ants actively and aggressively protect aphid colonies. They chase away ladybugs, the most efficient natural predator of aphids. They attack parasitoids that try to lay eggs in aphids. They physically move groups of aphids to new healthy parts of plants when the current area is depleted. They build soil structures around the stems of infested plants to protect the aphids from below. An aphid colony without ants rarely survives more than a few weeks in a garden with reasonable biodiversity. With ants, it can persist for an entire season, colonize multiple plants, and cause irreversible growth damage. You don't have an aphid problem. You have an ant problem that manifests as aphids. And any product that only treats the aphid is solving the symptom while the cause continues to operate freely. Now let me show you what really works. And before the main reveal, subscribe to the channel now, because what's coming next isn't a product with a fancy name on the packaging. It's a material you probably already have or can get for free, and it solves the ant problem with an effectiveness that will annoy you for not having known about it sooner. Diatomaceous earth. If you've never heard that name, pay attention, because you'll remember it forever after today. Diatomaceous earth is a white powder formed by the microscopic fossils of marine algae called diatoms. These fossils are between 10 and 200 micrometers in size and are composed mainly of silica, the same material as glass. Under a microscope, each particle looks like an ice crystal, with sharp, irregular edges. For a human or a mammal, this powder is completely harmless. You can touch it, inhale small quantities. It's present in various industrial food products as an anti-caking agent. For a soft-bodied insect with a thin exoskeleton, it's devastating. When an ant walks on diatomaceous earth, The particles microscopically cut the waxy layer covering the insect's exoskeleton. This waxy layer is what prevents the ant from losing body moisture to the environment. Without it, the ant dehydrates, not immediately, but within a few hours, depending on temperature and humidity, irreversibly. And here's the fundamental difference between diatomaceous earth and any chemical insecticide. The mechanism is physical, not chemical. This means two critical things. First, ants cannot develop resistance. There's no selective pressure that would make an insect evolve to have an exoskeleton resistant to physical cuts. The same powder that works today will work 50 years from now with the same effectiveness. Second, there's no residual toxicity in the soil. Diatomaceous earth is silica. It's essentially very fine sand. It doesn't contaminate groundwater, doesn't accumulate in plants, and doesn't affect earthworms because they have layers of mucus that protect their bodies from the abrasive effect. You apply it once, the problem stops, but there's an application detail that most people get completely wrong when they try this for the first time. And this detail determines whether diatomaceous earth eliminates the ants or simply makes them change their path. Here's the correct protocol. The most common mistake is applying diatomaceous earth directly on top of the anthill. It doesn't work. Ants don't walk through the entrance of the anthill all the time, and the material that falls inside the tunnel immediately loses effectiveness because the moist underground environment prevents the dehydration mechanism. Diatomaceous earth works as a walking barrier. It needs to be where ants walk on the surface, on the trails they establish between the anthill and the plants they are exploring. First step, observe for 5 minutes where the ants are walking. They always use trails. Trails are march lines established with pheromones that the entire colony follows. You'll easily identify them because you'll see multiple ants following the exact same line. Second step, apply diatomaceous earth in a continuous strip, crossing the trail. It doesn't need to be thick. A thin but continuous layer is sufficient. What matters is that it covers the entire width of the trail without interruption. Third step, apply a ring around the base of each plant that is being visited by ants. This ring prevents access to the stems and the aphids being managed on the aerial parts of the plant. Fourth step, and this is the detail most people miss, reapply after rain or watering. Diatomaceous earth loses its effectiveness when wet because the particles aggregate and lose their sharp edges. After drying, it partially regains effectiveness, but a thin reapplication is always more efficient than relying on the material that remained. Fifth step, apply directly to the anthill opening after the trail barrier is established, not inside the tunnel, but around the opening, creating an unavoidable passage zone. Any ant leaving or entering will have to walk over the material. Now the part I promised at the beginning, the same material, the same protocol, the same effectiveness, but indoors. Ants inside the house follow the exact same logic as ants in the garden. They use pheromone trails. They have specific entry points. They are exploring a food source and returning to the colony. The difference is the environment. Hard surface, enclosed space, absence of rain. And this difference works in diatomaceous earth's favor. Without rain to dissolve the material, an indoor application lasts for weeks. You apply it once along thresholds, baseboards, under appliances, at identified entry points, cracks, holes around pipes, spaces under doors. The ant enters, walks over the powder, returns to the colony, and dies. And since ants groom each other, the material spreads to individuals who never left. It's not poison in the chemical sense. It's physics applied to the insect's social grooming behavior. An important observation, only use food-grade diatomaceous earth, not the products sold for pool filters. Pool grade has differently shaped particles that can irritate the respiratory system of people and pets. Food grade is safe for use in a home environment, even with children and pets present. Now let's close the loop. You started this video with an aphid problem. You discovered that the real problem was the ants managing those aphids. You understood that ants were also destroying your soil, destabilizing roots, and transporting pathogens between plants. And you discovered that there's a physical, not chemical, powder that stops all of this without poisoning the soil, without killing earthworms, and without leaving residue on your plants. The same powder that solves the garden problem solves the indoor problem without adaptation, without a different product, without additional cost, and without any mechanism that ants can learn to bypass over generations. Next time you see a line of ants in the garden or kitchen, you won't see an unsolvable problem anymore. You'll see a pheromone trail waiting for a line of diatomaceous earth, and you'll know exactly what to do. If this video solved a problem you've had for a while, leave a like so more people who are buying the wrong product for the wrong problem can find this content. In the comments, tell me where you have the most ant problems, in the garden, inside the house, or both at the same time. I want to understand how many people are dealing with both environments because the next video will delve deeper into the specific protocol for each situation. The next videos will continue building the complete system, protected soil, autonomous irrigation, pests blocked without poison, multiplied production. Each video is a piece, and this was another piece that solves a problem that seemed to have no simple solution. If this knowledge has transformed the way you see the balance in your garden and home, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. We are unearthing wisdom that many have tried to ignore so you can cultivate a prosperous and pest-free environment. The next secret of our system will be revealed soon. Join us and let's sow the future.